I don't want to preach for too long tonight, so is it okay if we dive in and then we can get to some Q&A? Is that all right? Can we please give it up for the team as well? You guys are world class. Like, I love yous. You guys are amazing, really. Love it. Cool, grab a seat. We're going to quickly jump into the Word. It is. We've had such a great weekend. Talking on marriage, it's our passion, and we've been doing it for a little while. This book is available in the foyer. It's available on the floor and in the foyer. And like what Pastor Andrew was saying, I wrote it to keep it really, really short and sweet. It's based on a framework that I came up with, and I'd never seen it done in books. Anything that I read, anything that was out there. So I thought, I need to write it myself. And the idea is that it's for marriages, but the concept actually works for all meaningful relationships, friendships, family, church family, things like that. So the idea is that intimacy is what we want. If you can picture a Venn diagram, I don't even know if we have that. Do we have that diagram we can stick up behind me? There it is. So if intimacy is in the middle, that's what we want. We want all forms of intimacy in our marriage, but if you don't have connection, unity, and vision happening, it's going to be really, really hard. So if you feel closely connected, if you're spending enough time together, there's laughter, there's play, there's quality time, face-to-face, if you're on the same page with everything that matters to you both, and you know how to have those hard conversations, how to have an expectation, chat, those kind of things, and if you have a vision that is combined, it's for you both, this is the kind of life that we want to build together, and you're on the same page about that vision, intimacy is a natural byproduct. So that's the book. Let's get into the Word. Is that all right? Cool. I'm rushing. I don't want to rush, but I really want to get into your questions tonight. I've got two thoughts for you here tonight. I didn't want to share them this morning, but Pastor Andrew's like, yeah, let's go for it. I'm like, sweet, let's do it. So I've made a few thousand mistakes, at least, in our marriage. Maybe a few thousand in a week. I don't know. There's been a lot. In my marriage, with my friends, with my family, I've made so many mistakes. In my parenting, there's so many. And there's only really one way to prevent a mistake from being made, and that's wisdom. Self-control is pretty powerful too. But if you don't have the wisdom to know what to do, you can't even employ the self-control to stop from making that mistake, because we think it's right. We don't do things that we know are wrong. We think that they're right. We think that we're justified. We think that this is going to be a good thing. I need to express myself here in this way. Sometimes it doesn't work out. They say that wisdom is something that you get 5 minutes after you need it. But experience is not a guarantee of wisdom, because I've made the same mistake so many times, right? I know lots of people. I work in welfare 2 days a week, and I know lots of people who have lots of life experience and very little wisdom. So wisdom is not so experience isn't a guarantee of wisdom. There's got to be another way, and we receive wisdom through three means. Through God himself, James chapter 1. If any of you lacks wisdom, then you can go to God, who gives to all generously without finding fault, right? Through the community of faith with each other, and from wise counsel, from your mentors and your leaders. That's three clear ways that we can receive wisdom, directly from God, from the community of faith, and from our leadership and our mentors. Proverbs says, here we go. I'm going to open up Proverbs chapter 24 and Proverbs chapter 4. It's on screen here. Proverbs 4 verse 7 says this. I love it. The beginning of wisdom is this: get wisdom. So good. Even the pursuit of wisdom is wise. How good is that? Though it cost all you have, get understanding. When you have an understanding of how God made relationships work, you have wisdom. You can grab a hold of that understanding and you can apply it into your relationship. If you have no understanding that sacrificial love is required in marriage and even in friendship, then you're missing out on a key component for how relationships function in the kingdom. All right? So the beginning of wisdom is to start focusing on getting wisdom. Love it. right? Wisdom is when we understand how God made something work and then we choose that action. We choose the best and the highest possible course of action. That's wisdom. Proverbs 24, verse 3 and 4 says, by wisdom a house is built, and through understanding it is established. Through knowledge its rooms are filled with rare and beautiful treasures. Wow. So through wisdom a house is built. The kind of marriage that you want, the kind of partner that you want, the kind of home that you want, the kind of atmosphere in your house that you want, you get that through wisdom, not by manipulation, not through control, not by just demanding what you want, not through emotional intelligence or having more money than you can poke a stick at, right? Not even through more time or having a great followership on TikTok, like that means anything. None of that is going to give you the home and the house and the life and the marriage and the closeness that you want, but wisdom will. When you get an understanding of how it works, how God created it to work, that's when you have some wisdom. Cool. But we live in this age of so much information and so little wisdom. Like, there's so much on YouTube, but how much of it is wise? How much of the insane amounts of data that is hitting your eyes every single day, how much of that is wisdom? Because I searched for a fair while on TikTok to find anything. And there's this relationship coach in Sydney who I'm like, wow, your stuff is toxic. And he's got twice the amount of followers that I have. I'm like, that figures because, people don't like me talking about certain things like sacrificial love and maintenance sex and stop watching porn and things like that. Mind you, that one has a lot of feedback. Right? It's hard to find wisdom on YouTube. It's impossible to find it on Facebook. It's evaporated. TikTok and Twitter, it's so hard. But get wisdom, though it costs all you have. It will cost you your current mindset on relationships to get the wisdom as to how the real thing works, how God really made it work. So tonight, 2 quick points. Ready? If you're writing notes, write this down. Number 1, love is action. We think that love is a feeling first, but it's not. There's a problem with that, and the problem is that feelings are fleeting. Feelings come and go. I'm a feelings first kind of person, all right? And I was standing down here earlier in worship, and God talks to me through my feelings. Because feelings can be a strength as well. And I felt like the Father said to you tonight, that to get wisdom, because there are some generational changes that need to happen for you and your family. Some brokenness that you've experienced. Some of your parents are not together anymore. Some of you are walking and you're wondering how this crazy thing called life really works. And you're like, I just want to get a great partner and get married and have a bunch of kids and work out what this life looks like. But you desperately don't want what's been left for you. And the Father wants to lead you and love you into a place of wisdom and strength so you can break some of those things that have happened down the line of your family. Sorry, that's just a side note. Feelings come and go. Building your house on feelings is like constructing a house on live jellyfish, right? With live jellyfish as the foundation. As soon as there's a little bit of pressure, those jellyfish are out of there, all right? Feelings are a great symptom. They're a great indicator. They're a great tool, and they're a great sign, but they are a terrible foundation for decisions. I married a couple a few years ago, and I got a call in about September last year, and the girl said he's left me for another girl. And I said, oh, that's weird. What's the deal? And he's like, she just said he hasn't got feelings for me anymore, and he's started to develop feelings for this girl at work. And I'm like, oh, okay. And I had this guy's number, so I'm like, can I call him? She's like, yeah. So I'm like, cool. So I rang him, and I'm like, hey, what's up? He's like, hi. I'm like, so this is what's going on, hey? He's like, yeah, that's just kind of how it is at the moment. I don't really have Don't really have feelings for her anymore, but started to actually really truthfully develop these real feelings for this girl at work. And I'm like, okay, man, let me tell you how this is going to go. For the rest of your life, if you base your decisions on your feelings, you're going to loop in and out of relationships, in and out, in and out. You're going to leave a trail of destruction behind you, and you're going to be so unbelievably empty because you are feelings first. What about the commitment that you made when you got married? Anyway, we finished the phone call and he was like, yeah, cool, no worries. And I heard feedback from the wife that he was like, nah, whatever, cool, no worries. And anyway, her mum comes to our church and she comes up to me in February and goes, oh, I'm sure you heard what happened. And I'm like, no. Oh, they're back together and it's wonderful. And I'm like, really? Okay, well, that's great. But we need to have a chat because that's going to happen again. Unless he starts to base his decisions not on what he feels, but on what the commitment was that he made. And secondly, feelings follow action. If you just keep loving, the feelings come back. Like we live in a world that thinks with its feelings. Like love is action. You show me a man who surrenders and sacrifices for his wife every single day, I'll show you a happy woman and I'll show you a happy man. Because love is action. Love is commitment. Love is action. Love is sacrifice. And then love is feelings. Like do the washing up. It's going to help. It's going to help. Like love on the children for a while. Like stop thinking everything's 50-50 because it's not. Right? Anyway. For God so loved the world that he gave his only son. It's not for God so loved the world that he felt really, really, really deeply about us. He gave. He was active. He participated. He put himself out there. Jesus died for you and me. God just didn't have a bunch of feelings. For God so loved the world that he gave. He was active in his love. Ephesians 5 verse 2 then says, follow God's example, therefore. Whoa, hang on a minute. Follow God's example, therefore, as dearly loved children and walk in the way of love. I love that. But then it goes on, just as Christ loved us and gave himself up for us as a fragrant offering. God, are you serious? You want me to love my neighbor as myself, and then you want me to love as you've loved me, and now you want me to love like Christ died for me. See, immature love doesn't cut it in the kingdom. I'm jumping into my second point. But walk in the way of love. Love isn't just affection and snuggles while you're watching, Stranger Things and MasterChef. Love isn't just sex. It's not holding hands as you walk along the beach. Love isn't this nice feeling that you get when you're safe with your partner or spouse, boyfriend, girlfriend. That's not the definition of love. Love is action and commitment and sacrifice and feelings. If you're writing notes, write this down. I'm running out of time. Grow up to love better. I'm sorry, this might hurt a little. Often we think that we're going to get by with immature love. And that's where we all start, 100%. But we need to grow up in the way that we see what love is and the way that we do love in our relationships. Rabbi Abraham Twersky has this little thing on YouTube. Seriously, look it up. It's called Fish Love, right? I love it. And the story goes, this ancient story goes that a boy is down at the river catching fish. And he catches a fish, and the rabbi's watching him. And he catches a fish, and he kills it, and he fries it, and he eats it. And the rabbi goes down to him, and the rabbi says, oh, hey, so you like the fish? And he goes, yeah, man, I love fish. And the rabbi says to him, you don't love fish. You love yourself. That's why you caught the fish. You caught it, you fried it, and you ate it because you love yourself. And so Rabbi Twersky talks about fish love in relationships. A guy meets a girl. feels pretty good. And he thinks, you know what? I could have all of my needs met by this person. I feel really great. And she sees the guy and she says, you know what? This guy's pretty good. I can see a future with this guy. I can have all of my needs met by this guy. Instead of, so the love is actually about me. The love's about what I'm getting out of the relationship, not what I can give. That's fish love. Fish love is me-centered love. I don't love the girl. I love how the girl makes me feel. That's a dangerous foundation for love and marriage. That's why love is exemplified by Jesus, who came and sacrificed and gave. I put on my Insta this afternoon a quote from Dallas Willard, and it was, love cares about what the recipient desires, what the recipient needs. Love cares for what the recipient needs, not, and so desire cares for what I can get out of the recipient. So the Bible talks about love, and it's not fish love. It's not this person makes me feel good. It's how can I give to this person. In any committed relationship, you're gonna be challenged to deepen your love. Your maturity of love needs to keep growing. Because how are you gonna keep loving when you don't feel like it? And this has challenged me deeply at times. And Beck and I have done a really long journey in this. But how am I going to love her and still be warm and kind and affectionate to her when I don't feel loved by her? Is my love conditional on how much love I'm receiving? And how do I measure that? Like, we are polar opposites in almost every metric. Our interests are very different. We have totally different love languages. We don't speak the same love language. I speak Italian and she speaks some kind of Farsi. Like, they're poles apart. Our personalities are wildly different. She's an introvert, I'm an extrovert. Like, we are such different people. But if we serve and love each other, we can make it work. I challenge all my wedding clients to do two things: to love deeply and love well. Love with excellence. And don't think about yourself first. But that's maturing love. Maturing love doesn't think about what I'm getting out of this relationship. Maturing love thinks about, how am I giving to this relationship? How am I serving? How am I sacrificing? What am I giving? Now, it takes two to tango, 100%. Lots of comments on TikTok, because I did this little TikTok that went a little bit crazy, called it "Sacrifice is Sexy." Because, I'm trying to work the algorithm too, all right? And I got all these people saying, well, I sacrificed, but he doesn't. Well, I sacrificed, but she doesn't. And I'm like, okay, good call. Sacrifice is sexy, but, it does take two. Tim Keller, in his book, The Meaning of Marriage, talks about how marriage is a reflection of the gospel, right? So Christ came and died for you and I, right? He sacrificed so that you and I could have relationship, we could have intimacy with God. And he says that if two people are sacrificing for each other, then you have mutual sacrifice, brings mutual fulfillment. Both of us get content, enjoy our life together when we are both sacrificing for one another. But you know what sacrifice is? It's freaking hard. Because I don't want to wash up if she goes out and I've already cooked. Right? Because I don't want to, sometimes I'm frustrated with her. And I'm like, I don't want to make you a coffee in the morning. Sacrifice, love, real love, is Romans 5:8. Perfect example as I'm wrapping up. It says, but God demonstrates his own love for us in this, that while we were still sinners, Christ died for us. That's the example of a fully mature love. That even when I'm offended and hurt and the offense is still coming, I can respond in love. How do you love when you've been sinned against? Do you still move towards your spouse? It's tough. It's tough because we want to react to our friend who's offended us. We want to react. We want to block them on Insta. Yeah. Get out of here. Not responding to your text message. Do you choose to love or do you withdraw? Do you retreat into a cave or do you continue to engage in love, in forgiveness, moving towards them? Husbands, love your wives just as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her. So yeah, even love when you've been offended. Totally, communicate it. You got to talk about it. It's not just, no, I'm going to forgive her, and then never mention it. No. Like, we've got to work together as a team to eliminate these points of tension and dysfunction, 100%. But forgiveness is one of your most powerful resources. Mature love is one that values connection with the other person, even despite an offense. 1 Peter 4 verse 8 says, love covers a multitude of sin. Whoa. It's a sacrifice. Love well and love deeply. Let's pray. Let's pray. God, just a couple of quick thoughts tonight, but I pray that we would grow in our understanding of love and that we would grow in our participation in love, in how we love, in the way that we love. God, I pray that you would enable us to walk in a mature love, in forgiveness, in sacrifice, and that you'd help us to have wisdom as we journey through the complexity of relationships on this earth and this age. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen. I'm going to invite Pastor Andrew up, and we're going to do some other cool stuff. Sounds good.
So good.
Fantastic. Can we give Darren a big hand? And, yep. So not only is it going to be Darren, we're also going to have Beck up as well, and I'm also going to invite my beautiful wife, Wendy. So could you just give our three other guests a big hand, please? That'd be great. Up we come. Yeah. Brilliant. How good was that tonight? Yeah. COVID, social distancing.
Like a COVID separation.
That's good. That's good. Brilliant, Darren. We could dive into so many of the things that you spoke about tonight. That was exceptional. But what we're going to do is we're going to open this up to you both. And how are you going, Beck, too, by the way? You doing good? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm doing good. Really good.
Good. Very good.
Had a great weekend here.
Yes, we have.
It's been a lot of fun. So we have questions here, and the questions have been ranked according to the most popular questions that are on there. People are going to like those. I was thinking before we could also separate the questions according to their rating. So maybe, do you want to start with the PG questions or the MA questions, or where do we go first?
Are there any R's? No, we can't start with those questions.
We'll save those right at the end. All right.
Keep people hanging on.
Yeah. Okay, so we're going to dive right in because these are great questions that have been put in. Okay, so here's the first one. It's obviously in the context of a relationship. How do you be more, or how does someone become more emotionally available in a relationship to someone else?
That's you, babe.
Okay.
For all the men out there.
I guess there's a reason why they're not emotionally available anymore. So something's happened. So whether it was a past relationship or something that's taken place inside the relationship, like marriage is such an intimate place, or boyfriend and girlfriend, you're sharing some really, really like close things. There's a lot of opportunity for offense and hurt. Mm-hmm. I would say that there's a reason why the person isn't emotionally available anymore.
Right.
And I would encourage them to do a work of healing with God.
Yep.
See a counselor, definitely see a counselor. That's probably going to be my answer to most of these questions. See a counselor. But yeah, like there's a reason why people put up walls. There's a reason why we shut down. Sometimes, like it's a trauma response. Sometimes there's been an abuse or a hurt. Sometimes there's been something that's quite significant in their world, and then we put up these protective measures to protect our hearts. And there needs to be some wise counsel that leads the person in prayer and in God to a place of true healing.
Yeah. Fantastic. Great answer. We've got another one here. Do you want to ask this one?
Most definitely.
Okay.
Okay, you ready? This is the healthy, number 2. Oh, what are important and healthy boundaries for dating? This is, all the young singles. Come on, engaged. Yeah. Boundaries.
What do you reckon, babe? Important, healthy boundaries for dating.
They could go a lot of different directions.
Yeah.
Healthy boundaries. I think wisdom from those that are further down the track. We've talked earlier about, there being some fruit in who you're getting wisdom from. So sometimes when it comes to dating, just talking it all out with your girlfriends or your mates. I was going to say boyfriends, and then I was like, it doesn't sound the same, does it? Your mates is actually not always the best option. They haven't been there, done that. There's usually not sort of fruit out of their own relationships. They haven't been there. So, you've got leaders, you've got pastors, people that have sort of a bit further down the journey are really helpful to talk that out. And so, I had somebody talk with me recently, new relationship, bit of a spark happening. They were trying to work out, what it was. And this is sort of people sort of mid to late 20s. And but they were talking it all out with their girlfriends who didn't really have an idea either. And so that's the reality. And it just was spiralling, So, it was really important for them to be able to sort of find some people to talk it out with. And the decision for them ended up being, actually, it's probably not right for us to stay together. And so, it's off. Spark has died. But, just sort of some boundaries around that for them, I guess, there were some, decisions, I guess you can talk physical boundaries, super important conversations to have early on when you're dating, I would say, if we throw
what?
into that.
Like what? What's an example?
Oh, jeez.
Keep your hands above. No.
That's right.
That's a good one.
Not
Hands
in-
above the waist, people.
Yeah.
Well,
No
there's
tongue.
other things above the
Am I?
waist that you don't
No
want to
tongue. No, whatever is going to activate you to the point where you can't hold back,
Yeah.
pare it back a little bit and set the boundary.
Yeah. Yep.
Move in packs.
Yeah, move in packs, that's right. I work with
totally.
somebody who's got teenage children, and their deal is there's got to be 6 or more of you to go on a date. And the kids are like, what? Do you know how hard it is to get 6 people together to go to the movies? Well, what if they cancel? Guess the date's off then. They've gone quite... Well, you just lost $30 or... Actually, it's expensive up here. It's $25. Yeah. It's cheaper in New South Wales.
Heaps cheaper movie tickets in Newcastle, mate. Terrible football, but...
Yeah.
But I think communicating some of those physical boundaries early, because otherwise it goes pear-shaped pretty quickly.
Yep.
I think that you have to have a good theology of sex.
Right.
Because that helps to determine why, we need to make these boundaries. If you have a healthy theology of sex, sex is so powerful. Sex is a gift from God for a married couple to experience and enjoy with complete freedom with one another in the context of marriage alone. Why is that the case? It's because sex is so, so powerful. I was at a Real Men conference in Sydney, and Dr. Alan Meyer was talking, and he was saying, anyone who is 4 years old who got a smack is probably not going to remember it. But anyone who's 4 years old who was sexually touched in an inappropriate way, they're going to remember it, and it's going to mark them for the rest of their life. Right. So sex is so powerful, it's not something to play with. It's so fun. It's so great. But inside the right context.
Yeah.
So if we have a healthy theology of sex, then we can say, well, this needs to be the boundary because I don't want to go there until we're tying the knot.
And that's where respect comes in.
100%.
You know, that is respect. You know, you love this person, you say you love this person, you're respectful
Right.
of that, and that will, if they want to cross that line, where's the, yeah.
Yeah. That's good. Which leads in actually, there's the next question because you started speaking on it then. And I think just with the, I suppose the content you're putting out on TikTok and that you must be on the coalface of this question too as well, both from, you've got the biblical side of things. You talked about having a good theology of sex, of relationships as the foundation for it. And this is the basis of this question. It's how do we have what is a healthy biblical view of sex, particularly while we're dating, without it becoming shameful or also not become hypersexualized along with our modern culture? It's a great question.
Yeah. You need to watch what content is hitting your eyes and your ears first. Mm-hmm. Because there's so much in everything. Doesn't mean you can't enjoy a movie, but do some research before because there's just sexualized stuff everywhere. So be smart with what you put in front of your eyes. Be smart with what you put in your ears because you become what you take in. Read great books. Read healthy, great biblical books like The Meaning of Marriage. There are some really great stuff on sex, but there's some really weird stuff on sex as well. Yeah. So talk to your leaders and your pastors and do some research, like who is this person and what do they believe about it before you dive in. Again, Dr. Alan Meyer's stuff on sex is very, very good, very, very healthy. But there's probably a bit of a gap in the market there for some really... Actually, what's her name? Sheila Egerich, something weird like that. She's got some really great fresh content on The Great Sex Rescue is one of her books. And then, I can find some info and send it to you.
I think sort of throw in this accountability as well.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
When we do pre-marriage counselling with young couples or any couples, accountability, when they know that somebody is going to say, hey, going with that, yeah, not so great, it really helps them along the way. You know, we say to them, you know, we've got a couple of living areas and we say, if you find that you need to, like our door is always open, and if you need to hang out here so that you're not hanging out by yourselves because that puts you in a really vulnerable place, then come hang out, watch a movie at our place because there's kids around and we're going to walk through the room as well. You know, so sometimes just a bit of put some practical things in place that are going to help you.
So good.
Right.
Definitely.
Yeah, that's good.
What about those that are single and have been through a long, period of singleness and waiting, that waiting period? How do you get through those seasons?
I'd just say trust the timing of God.
Yeah.
That's really hard to do, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like, that's so tough when, like, half of your friends are getting married and you're like, far out, God, where's mine? And there's not, like, just the one, though. Like we were talking about this earlier.
Yeah.
It's not like I've got to find the one. No. You just find someone and you decide that they're the one and they're the one. It's not like you missed the one and now you're done. If it is in your heart, this is my theology, if it's in your heart to be married, that's in God's heart for you too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Father loves you.
Yeah.
He wants to give you the desires of your heart. So pursue him and trust him for his timing, even if it's far outside the realm of what you were hoping for.
Yeah.
Trust his timing because you don't want to short circuit it and screw up your future.
And don't compromise.
Yes.
What about just on that question from a different perspective for a minute. Maybe not so much even just from a season of waiting in terms of just singleness again, but what about for those who may have gone through separation or then divorce and then they're on that side of things as well? What about from your experience just in working with couples in your time or then who maybe one or both of them have then walked through divorce? What have been some of the things that you've seen for people who've actually been able to walk through that and come out on the other side and seeing God be able to restore things and seeing their heart go well? What would we say maybe one or two things that you've seen have been a real key?
We had probably a 10-year period in our church where I felt like we were getting, we had so many separated women coming, and for all different reasons. Some of there was abuse that had happened. Like there was lots of different reasons, and it was like we'd become this safe place for these women who were broken and hurting, and for them, I think what they did is they stayed connected to the house of God, right, and just kept turning up. So even on weeks where they really probably just wanted to stay at home and feel awful, they just kept turning up and they just kept raising their hands in worship. And so many of them, and this is sort of women in their sort of, I would say, between 40s and 60s, whole stack in their 50s. They've ended up with these, we've been to their weddings, like they've ended up with these men who just treat them beautifully and, you know, sort of doing the grandparent thing together, sort of with these blended sort of, it's beautiful. It's beautiful to see, but they've just kept in God and kept sweet with God.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Totally. That's exactly my answer. And like, stay in the house, stay connected. Your walk with God is the most important thing. Trust Him for everything else. Yep.
Yeah. And I'll back that up too. You know, I remember this is a few years back now, and just sitting down coffee with a guy who had a very difficult situation go on in his marriage, and it ended really quickly and wasn't a pretty situation on any front. But I remember just sitting there in the cafe and him vocalizing that kind of words like, you know what, I don't understand it. I can't reconcile it. I don't even know why it's all happened, but I'm making this commitment in my heart that I'm going to keep holding on to God. Yeah. And it was just honestly one of the most like powerful moments. And we're sitting in this cafe, and I remember just leaning into him and saying, you know what? I don't know, sometime, it might be a year, it might be 2 years, it might be 3 years, we're going to sit down in this cafe again and you're going to look back and give thanks to God for what He did through this, because you made this decision now and walked through it. And that's exactly what happened on the other side. Got remarried, beautiful wife, incredible, God restored all things. And I thought, that cafe, I remind him of it, I said, that decision you made in the cafe back then, that is what actually determined the course of everything God did after that. You held on to God, you stayed in His house, and it was awesome.
So true.
Yeah.
So good.
That's cool.
So good. Red flags. Red flags. Say no more. There you go. Okay. What constitutes breaking off a relationship rather than getting married?
I mean, there's some obvious stuff like you discover an infidelity. There's another wife in another country or something.
That'll do it.
That has happened, people.
That'll probably do it.
All right.
In case any of you are wondering, that's one of those.
Like, I'd say there's stuff that is total deal breakers. Like, you definitely want to have children. They definitely don't want to have children. Yeah. Like, that's a complete separation of family values there, right? That's a values-based difference, right? And sometimes they're the hardest to navigate. Yeah. Like, they're the hardest ones, you know. But like, there's a level below that as well. Like, ones that aren't deal breakers, we might do the journey together. Maybe like you discover that your boyfriend or girlfriend is using porn. That might be a complete deal breaker for you. You're like, nah, I'm not even going to go there. So we had a couple, and they were engaged. Were they engaged by that time?
No, I know this story better than you.
No. Okay.
So
Beck has the details, Darren. Just
I relent.
we had a young couple who, you know, they were in love and all the rest of it, you know, or were they? She discovered that he had a pretty significant porn addiction, and you know they were in church, they were there every week, and you know it seemed like things were going great. She discovers that he's got this very significant porn addiction, and I remember her sitting with us and sort of being like, I don't know if they weren't engaged at the time, but they were heading
right.
that direction.
Yes, they weren't engaged.
It looked like they were heading that direction. She says, I don't know if I can do this. Like she was devastated by it, and I don't know if I can do this journey with him. Like I don't know if I want to do the journey with him. And I said, look, you know what? It's totally your call. Yeah. You're not married, so you don't have to. Once you're married, you got a journey to do together, as hard as that is. But if you're not married, you don't have to. They broke up and she's now very happily married with, you know, a few young children, and he's now married to another girl, and she knew about it, but she was prepared to do the journey with him. And I'm like, you know what? It's got to be your call, but until you're married, you can walk away from that kind of stuff.
This other couple that I was talking about.
You know the story better than me.
I know the story better than you. Let me tell this one. No, and they sat in our lounge room, and she had just discovered that he had a porn problem. It wasn't a high level addiction, but it was in his life, and he had already engaged me to help him and mentor him along the journey to freedom. So there's movement, there's motion, and you said exactly the same thing to her. You're not married. You get to choose. She chose to stay with him, to do the journey with him, to support him, and now he's free, they're married, and very much in love. So it can go either way, but it depends on what you think is a red flag. Are you prepared to do a journey if something of that magnitude comes up? That's up to you.
What about when it's your family or your close friends? In that regard of red flags, like, don't feel it's the right.
Oh, as in they think they're worried about your choice.
Yes.
I have some first-hand experience of that. This is broadcast live, isn't it?
not anymore.
No, that's all right. We love you online. You're awesome. No, let me just say, a close friend of mine was getting married, and the whole family was concerned. Okay. And at different points, we were like, "So, is this still what you want to do?" "Yeah, absolutely." "Cool." "No, is this still what you want to do?" "Yeah, absolutely." Even on the wedding day, someone said to him, "Are you sure?" And he was like, "Absolutely." And they've had an interesting journey, but they're pretty good. They've worked it out. Yep. So, like...
We've seen it go both ways. That's
exactly right, yeah. With that other couple.
I had a friend,
Yep.
I was only about 19. You know, she fell in love with this guy who was very, very different to her. And we're very, very different. So that's not a red flag, being different to each other, having different interests. But anybody could have seen that there was something not quite right with what was going on. And anyway, I'd sort of said to her, are you sure this is what you want to do? And even on the wedding day, I was bridesmaid, you know, in my beautiful pink dress. We even had like straw hats. This was like more than 20 years ago. And on the day I was like, just before we walked down the aisle, I was, you know, last one with her, and I was just like, are you good? Are you sure? Because basically, I'm here for you if we're not. Like, I can go right now. And she was like, of course, like, it's going to be great. 9 months later, it was all over. 9 months. She didn't even get to 21 before she had a broken marriage. And his thing was like, yeah, but like, you know, like I just feel like I was on another planet for a couple of years and I've just come back to who I really am. And, you know, so we're not right for each other. And it's just like, oh my gosh. So, you know, it broke both of them. I still think that it was worth saying to her. I still think that, you know, she knew she had my support either way. Right. And after it all fell apart, she still knew, whatever happens, I'm here for you. Yeah. And I think that's where it's important that whatever decision they make, you're still there for them.
Yeah. Yeah. Great. Popular question on here. How do I know they're the one to marry in a relationship?
Do we have time to tell that story?
Yeah.
Okay. A friend of mine was with a girl and it was going fine, and then it wasn't going fine, and then they broke up. And then 2 years later, he's driving in his car and he feels the Holy Spirit say to him, "You're going to marry that girl." He sees her, he pulls up beside her, says, "Hey, get in." She gets in and he says, "I just feel like God said that I'm going to marry you." She's like, "All right." So they went over to her parents' house and told them that they're getting married.
How do you pastor that? That's
There's-
what I know.
That's not one of the questions, Wendy.
They're still married 20 years later, with 4 kids, happily married. Okay, that is not a great foundation.
Well, the foundation of hearing God, yes.
True. But maybe have a relationship as well.
But he did save himself a lot of money in the dating department, though, didn't he? Like, that's smart.
So did you when Wendy was overseas.
Very true. Just a phone bill.
When you know you
Yeah,
know.
the phone bill. Yeah, man, that's true. How do you know? It's a great question.
It's a choice.
Because
isn't it?
there's a lot to factor in, you know?
I think it's definitely worth. I remember, like, I talked to my mum. My mum and, you know, we were good friends, and you know, not just mother and daughter by that stage. Like, and I remember Darren and I fairly early felt like we knew we were going to get married, but we were young, and I wanted seasons and some maturity. Like, I wanted something that I wanted him to be at least 21. I had this like number in my head.
I was so mature at 21.
Yeah. Now I've lost my train of thought. Yeah, and I remember I was driving to church with my mum, and we never actually made it to service that morning because I'm sobbing in the car at a park, going like, "What if it's the wrong decision?" Like ugly crying.
I don't know if I've heard this story.
Yeah, no, you have.
Okay.
And I remember my mum like was basically like, "Wow, where has this come from?" But I'd sort of had this sudden, you know, I was having this relapse. I knew that an engagement question would have been coming any day now. Like, I knew it was, you know, impending, not impending doom, but, you know, impending. She was great in talking me through it, and basically like, you know, you don't have to. But I remember sort of she was like watching this family in the park, and I was like, what if it doesn't work? What if we're too young? What if we're this? What if we haven't had enough time together? We'd been together for a couple of years, and so we'd seen a lot of each other. Spent an awful lot of time together, done some seasons together. And she was like, yeah, and she looked at this, you know, happy family playing in the park, and she goes, yeah, but what if it's that? Like, and so then it became, you know what? There's so much that aligns for us values-wise, you know. So
I think, so dating is about compatibility, but once you're married, it's about unity.
Good word. Fantastic.
Right? So dating is about primarily compatibility of values. So if that person has the same values as you, so we're just talking with a couple at the moment who are both saved, got 2 kids, but their values around money are wildly different. And it's only just coming to light now. And they're having to do a really difficult journey because the way he thinks about money is extremely different to the way she thinks about money. Their relationship with money is very different. And it's only really starting to come to light now, and it's become a real problem. So ask the questions. Dating is about compatibility. What do you think about money? What is your background? Like, ask all the questions.
You guys have Prepare and Enrich that you do, right?
Right.
And, you know,
brilliant resource.
And those kind of things early on are fantastic to have. Don't assume you know what they think about something. Some of those hard topics or boring topics, you think, that's not sexy to talk about that. Super important because it's not sexy either later on when it's, you know, you're clashing all the time.
I actually remember doing that with you. Do you remember that?
100%. What was that? Prepare and Enrich?
I was living in Germany, so he really did get out dating me. But what it did do is that we had to talk to one another. We had to communicate. And back then there wasn't even email. It was only just starting, I think. And I remember sending him all these questions, and I think he must have thought, what the heck? What the heck? Okay, here's your list of 10, put them in priority. But it helped me, and I'm like, don't go heavy and don't go stupid because they will run. They'll think you're a nutcase. But he's into it. But I do...
That wasn't the first phone call.
That wasn't the first phone call.
It was after a few months we got to that one, yeah.
But, you know, it's like, I need to know what he prioritises. We need to be, and while we can't do that in the one country, you know, I've got to find a way to get to know this person at a distance and still develop it and grow as well, to know that is this worth pursuing?
And I love how you put that too. It's like, you talk about compatibility. It's not so like, hey, I like football, you like football. I like, you know, cheese, you like cheese. That's amazing. But
we should get married.
We should get married now.
Whoa.
No, we're compatible, you know, like. But the deeper question is, it's a compatibility around values, but also compatibility. That's the word. Compatibility around our vision. Yeah. And what does that look like?
Right.
And when you've got that, as you said,
that's
actually the basis then for a healthy, life-given relationship.
So the world also talks about sexual compatibility, whatever that is. Yeah. Right? Oh, we have to make sure that we're sexually compatible. Well, no, you don't. You choose the one and then you work out your sex life on the fly.
Oh, yes, you do.
Right?
Yes.
And it's fun.
Yeah.
And this is why I wanted Wendy on the panel.
Yeah.
Pastor Wendy, you're awesome.
And talk about it.
Yeah. Yes, have conversations about sex. Absolutely.
Sorry. I'm so sorry. In the event, what's the word?
In the interest.
Yes, in the interest.
There was a statement on Friday night he made. It was a classic.
Who knows?
There's a line, in the interest of open communication. It's the code word for...
It's a hard conversation.
It's a hard conversation.
Right.
If you don't ask, you don't get in a marriage. Yeah. And you've got to talk about things that you like and things that you don't like. Yeah. Otherwise, you don't learn.
That's right. Like, and I think what the world means by sexual compatibility is often what we term a libido differential. So when one person wants sex more than the other person, right? And that's what they're trying to say. What if our libidos aren't aligned? Right. And I would say, choose the one you love and love the one you choose. Like, you can work it out. Yeah. Right? And you're not necessarily going to know after a few months of having sex if your libidos are even wildly aligned. Right? Because when you're first on your honeymoon, well, it's all fun and roses and amazing, but it's later when you settle into some patterns and some rhythms, then you go, okay, this is weird because you don't want sex as much as I do, and that's when you have to start doing that journey of how do we work this out? How do we talk this out? How do we bring sacrifice and love into that space? How do we have a mature love that's not just thinking of yourself, but of your spouse, right? Yeah. So sexual compatibility is overrated. Choose the one you love, and then just love the one you chose. So good. You chose, so.
How good. Can we please thank Darren and Beck? That was amazing tonight, guys. You're awesome. Wonderful.